So if you look behind me here, 97 Dodge Cummins 12 valve manual. Should have a 215 horse motor in this thing. As you can see, it's a little bit rough. I'll show you a little bit more about it here. The Cummins engine is exposed. Apparently they wrecked it or had something going on to where they went to take the front end off and then they never finished what they were doing. The door's missing. I don't know exactly what the story on that is. It smells terrible in this cab. I mean, it is filthy. The glove box has got mouse nests in it over here. There's stuff, the headliner's falling down. It's dirty. Then we get to the back of the truck. Bed looks decent from this side. Little dent. Fuel tank busted out from underneath it, laying on the ground. Interesting. So back here, bumper, not so much. Got all the parts that are missing off the front, they're in the back now. So it looks like the intercooler is bent for some reason. The radiator's got a little hit in it. It's rusted clear off at the bottom. That is a original copper radiator, by the way. Come to this side. Big old dent right there, that door. The rear axle is literally shifted forward. The U-bolts underneath are rusted off, and it's got the axle where it walked forward on. This thing is a beauty, but this thing has a lot of potential. They only did 215 horse 12 valve Cumminses for 3 years, 96, 97, and half of 98. 98s are the most rare. They call those the Holy Grail. But this thing has the original tag on it that says 215 on the engine. I already checked it out. I haven't heard it run. It's supposedly set in the hills of Kentucky for like 5 or 7 years. Hasn't ran, and it shows it. We're going to try to get it running. It's a Cummins, it should run. Up here in the engine bay to show you how bad this is. Fire insulation has been ate and is draping down, and it stinks. There is stuff sitting on the top of this motor in this valley right here. I mean, leaves and stuff have blowed in there. The intake, this intake tube, has been left open there. So technically, if we get it to run, it's naturally aspirated because the turbo is not hooked up to the intake. But it'll still drive around if it'll run. The cool thing about it is there's a tag up in here. This tag right here says that it has the manual MV4500, which is obvious. It's got a standard duty transfer case, which is the lighter one, which is the DLD. It has a Dana 60 front axle. It is a 355 gear ratio truck, which was very common in second gens. And it has a Dana 80 rear, which was the bigger rear axle. Man, that thing's actually got a lot of oil, and that's up to the full level. It don't smell too bad either. That's a good sign. So we know it doesn't have any water in it because there's no radiator, but I'm curious if the engine does turn. Since that fuel tank is laying on the ground and the lines are literally ripped off of it there, I have a fuel tank I keep in the shop here with a little bit of diesel fuel in it. I'm going to hook a power supply to the pump on the other side of this tank right here, and that is a stock lift pump off a 98.5 to 2002 truck, and those pumps are usually known for being bad, but that one works. It makes about 20 psi of pressure. So now we need to get from that pump to this injection pump right here to make this old girl run. I want to get this intake off right here, which is a 7/16. Get that tube out of there. And then there's a fitting back in behind here I want to get out. And I think I have an AN fitting that'll screw into that injection pump. And that line from this tank right here, we can hook right in there. So truth be told, last night I actually had a spare pump in the shop. I ran this fitting in to make sure I thought it was the right size. And I think it is going to work here, so that'll be cool. Alright, so now that that's hooked up, that fitting's in there, I'm going to hook this up, this big old hose from this tank. I'm gonna run this up through here. There's a reason for that, I'll show you here. Alright, so we got a fuel supply to the pump. Now we need to figure out a return. And the return comes off the back of the motor. I probably won't be able to show you, but I'm gonna look down in there by that firewall and I'm gonna see if I can get a line cut off and something slid up in there for return. Got the fuel line hooked up right there. Got it ran over here. Return's hooked up, ran over here. The return, I think for now, I'm just gonna stick it in this top of this tank right here. We'll see if it returns fuel. That tells you if you're getting fuel, if it's returning fuel. So that's simple enough for the time being. The next thing is I want to see if the engine cranks over. So I set a battery on the other side in the battery tray. Since the battery tray here is missing, we're going to go with this one over here. Hopefully it makes connection through this terminal right here enough to crank this truck over. And hopefully the starter works. Hey, we got noise in the cab. That's interesting. I guess let's see if this thing's going to crank. We got crankage. We got crankage. That is good news. That we got some crankage going on. I can try to get fuel out of this tank in that engine and then maybe it'll fire. Another thing I need to check is I need to check and see if the shutoff solenoid on the side of the injection pump is working. This little solenoid right here should flip up while it's cranking. We'll see. That thing's even flipping up. See, although we have this fuel tank hooked to it, I went around the mechanical lift pump on the side of the engine, so it's going to drip some fuel out of that fitting there. I don't think it's going to drip much because it isn't going to get anything out of the fuel tank, but once we start it, it may spray out for a minute. We got to hook that electric fuel pump up to that battery on the other side of the truck, so I made me a makeshift wiring harness here. And we'll see if we can make it go from point A to point B. We should have power right here technically. If I go there, if I get a ground somewhere here, should be a ground cable. There's a ground cable. If I could get behind that ground cable, that'd be cool. There's ground. Alright, you should have power there now. Hey, we got return fuel, look at that. Did something right. Check this out. That little Carter fuel pump that everybody says is junk's doing its job. I could hear the valve on the back of the pump actually bypassing, which is what it's supposed to do. The next question is, what do we got to do to get the air bled out of the injection lines? Half the time, if you just hold these trucks to the floor, they'll bleed themselves. Sounds like the fin's touching something. It's way out of balance. It's definitely hit something. but it actually started really freaking good. That's a 12 valve Cummins for you right there. So I can't let this thing run too long because it doesn't have any water in it. But I'll show you that it's got oil pressure and everything. Look at that. That sucker's got 40 pounds of oil pressure. It's charging 14 volts. It's idling about 750 RPMs, which it's supposed to do. Running like a rain day. Next thing, I want to take this thing for a drive. I got to see what we're going to do about all this. The first thing I think we're going to do is we're going to take the fuel tank out of it. Just so that it ain't dragging. So the tank actually has some fuel in it. It's either fuel or water. With the price of diesel fuel, I ain't going to throw it away. I'm going to take it in the shop and drain it out. I bet it's better than half full. This Bobcat you're going to see, it's not really a Bobcat, it's more of a Bob Kitty. It's just part of one. So the best thing I can come up with how we're going to get this to drive with this fuel tank right here. See that fuel tank? I'm not wheeling it behind this, driving this truck around. So I'm going to set this fuel tank in the bed there, and then we're going to run the lines over the cab. We'll call that redneck ingenuity. Just whip myself in the face with diesel fuel right across here. Good time. Yeah, that smells good. I actually tasted a little bit too. I'm gonna go in the shop. I need to find a fitting, make me a piece of tubing up to hook this line to this return line right here, because this return line goes in the tank down here, and it'll make it to where I can keep this cap on, so if I'm driving this, it doesn't splash me in the back of the head. So I got a piece of brake line out of the shop, just standard old brake line. The ends were both cut off. I'm going to try to use it as a splice to hook that that return up there, and then use these clamps and clamp it together. Okay, now there's one last problem before we see if this thing will move. That rear axle is shifted way forward, and that is not going to be conducive. And the other problem is I still got diesel in my glasses. So we're going to figure out what it takes to get that rear axle held back so it doesn't walk forward. Because it's going to try to drive forward. It doesn't make sense. You would think it would try to fall back, but the way the tires are spinning, it's going to try to go forward. We're going to find something to hook onto that. I'm going to hook around that axle, and I'm going to ratchet strap it back so it can't go forward any farther. I just noticed the tire's flat too. I actually have an air compressor in the back of my work truck over here. I think I'll drag a hose over. We'll try to air that up real quick. I didn't put too much in it because it's really dry cracked and I don't want it to pop. And the lower you run it, the more superior traction you have. Have any brakes. That scared me. That scared me. So as I pulled up here, it started spewing power steering fluid out there. Not sure what that's all about. Out of the reservoir. Must have had air in it. It's burping it out right now. I thought maybe it blew a line. I didn't have very good steering the whole time. I think maybe I'll put the fuel lines on top of the cab and take her for one more cruise. Yeah, so that thing just purrs like a kitten. You wouldn't think you could drive a truck that looked like that, but that's actually a lot of fun. So I hope you guys like this project. It was kind of fun. I'm gonna part this truck out. It's worth way more in parts. It's got that good 215 horse Cummins, 215 horsepower Cummins in it. It's got an MV 4500 5-speed manual trans. A lot of guys are going to those. They don't make a manual transmission for a Dodge pickup truck anymore, so that's valuable. We're gonna do more of these Will It Starts if you like it. I always got junk like this coming in because I just do. Make sure you guys go buy our merch, our American Outlaw Monster Truck t-shirts. We're gonna get the monster truck out soon. We got another big thing in the shop we're working on. You guys will see cool stuff coming. Make sure to buy stuff here in the US. Thanks for watching Merica-Tv. We'll see you next time.